Hey everyone, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is
Season 5 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
If you think you had a bad week, at least you didn't get served with legal papers on a stage giving a speech.
This is true. It could always be worse.
Well, but thankfully, we're here now to brighten everybody's day.
Yes, we're on the other side of episode 200.
201.
That's right.
We made it.
We made it.
201. Here we
Looks
are.
like we made it.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Pero Let Me Tell You, episode 201. Man, it took 200 episodes to say that.
You know, after the build-up to episode 200, this episode feels a little anticlimactic right now.
I know, right?
Like,
It's
like to introduce it, it's like it's 201.
It's 201. 201.
Yeah, whatever.
But welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. How is everyone?
I think everyone's doing great because it is Friday.
Yes?
It's not Monday.
No. It's Friday night.
It's Friday night.
Or Friday morning for many of you.
Well, yeah, damn it. You, by going into Friday morning, I was going to segue into the TGIF song, but...
Well, yeah, it's Friday night and the mood,
mood
is
is
right.
right, yeah.
We're going to have some fun, show you how it's done. TGIF. Well, what we were saying, everyone, was that Jason
Wilde.
Sudeikis' wife or
Ex-wife.
ex-wife, or were they ever married?
I don't think they were married.
They were engaged.
Right.
But
had
they
two
just share
children.
custody of their kids, Olivia Wilde. She was served with papers. She was giving a speech at...
She was at CinemaCon, basically about to present and talk about this movie that she was doing with her now boyfriend, Harry Styles.
Right.
And somebody just went up on stage and literally...
Oh, so she's a watermelon?
Maybe that's what she is. Although you should never call a woman a watermelon. I don't think that's...
Well, that's not what I was referring to.
Oh, she's the watermelon.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And this person just, put a little like manila envelope on the stage, and she was...
You got served.
She was so complimented. She's like, "Oh, what's this? It feels like a script," and no, it was not.
But you know what, though? I also read that he had nothing to do with that.
Well, that's the thing. Process servers, you don't necessarily tell them.
No.
Where
Process
or
servers
how.
go use their own means.
Right.
But what's unfortunate is that
He had to come out and say, like,
right.
hey.
No, but he's the one who looks like a shady asshole.
Right.
Right. When maybe he just hired this I've hired process servers before. You know,
Right.
my line
That's
of
what I was
work.
gonna ask, yeah.
And generally. I've never had my cases are very run of the mill.
You've never had anybody presenting at CinemaCon?
So it was people's houses or maybe
Right.
job at most.
At most.
But yeah, process servers will do whatever they have to do.
Why do they do that?
Why do they do that?
Like these types of outlandish things. Like, are these people who are just like dodging?
Well, I think that hers.
It's not like if you don't get served.
I think that hers, the process server probably wanted to be a prick. And wanted
Okay.
to do
This.
because usually that's only the case when you're trying to evade service,
Right.
When you are purposely you've been after someone for several attempts.
Okay, but even if you don't get quote unquote served, just because you don't receive a paper doesn't mean that I can't sue you, does it?
Yes and no, because you can't sue. You could
Or proceed with
so
legal.
in a
whatever.
process when a process server serves you with paperwork, it means that the lawsuit has already been filed.
Okay, so this is happening.
Right. So the lawsuit is filed, and when the lawsuit is filed, the clerk of courts gives you a summons, right? Which generally that's what you serve to the other party, most of the time the defendant. So you have to serve that person with the complaint.
So this is the notice.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the case cannot move forward until that person has been properly served. Now,
Really?
yeah, the case can't move forward until the person is served.
So if somebody doesn't get served for 3 years,
So there's different ways of doing this. Like if you try to serve a person just for a really long time and they're evading service and you know that they're evading service and you could show the court that they're evading service, then you could do something what's called service by publication where
Okay.
you put it in the daily business review.
kind of like after someone passes away with an
There's
estate. like,
right. You could also
type
do
of
that
thing?
like when
Okay.
somebody is, if you're getting divorced, let's say, and you're, when you getting divorced is the same thing. It's getting divorced is a lawsuit.
Yeah, it's a legal
you're
thing,
filing a legal a legal case against your soon-to-be ex-spouse. So if you can't find that spouse because maybe they went to another country or whatever, eventually you can ask the court to do what's called service by publication. In divorces, it's a little bit more common because sometimes a person just moves. They leave. They move on with their life, right? But with like a regular civil case, or in this case, that it's probably family law because I think it has something to do with the kids. They didn't need to do that, especially with such a high-profile person. They don't need to do that.
She would have gotten it. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have just gone to Coachella.
They weren't serving the Jenners.
Well, no, because Harry Styles was there.
Oh, that's true.
And she's Harry Styles'
girlfriend. That's right.
Girlfriend. But yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah.
That's messed up. But it happens. It does happen.
And it gave us an opening for the show.
And it gave us an opening for the show.
So thank you, process server.
So let's see.
Well, we kind of took a hiatus last week of talking about anything that was topical because it was just about us, which is our favorite topic.
Yes.
So, this week we're like barreling through with
back.
We're catching up. We're catching up.
We're back to basics. So, Oye, let me ask you something. And our listeners, have you quit Twitter yet?
Well, I'm not on Twitter.
Right.
So,
so what do we think of this Elon Musk thing buying Twitter?
At the end of the day, it doesn't affect me because, again, I'm not on Twitter. So for me, it's just somebody buying a thing I don't use as it is. I will say I didn't know Elon Musk was such a person of contention up until like maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
Before
I
that,
thought he was
eccentric billionaire
CEO
type
of
of thing.
Tesla.
Yeah, like I didn't realize he was so reviled.
Yeah, he is.
I genuinely, the only reason I even started to know about that was because when he was hosting SNL. People were complaining, and I was like, "I Chico, let him host SNL, whatever. Who cares?" Knowing now what I know, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I still don't care, but I get it." I will say this, and we're on episode 201. I have always said that Twitter is the cesspool of social media.
So funny you use that word.
So
go ahead.
I don't. People are like all up in a frenzy, like it's gonna be horrible, it's gonna get worse. I'm like, but it's already just toxic.
So somebody,
it's more toxic than Britney's song.
So somebody who writes for NBC News.
Oh, did they have an op-ed?
Wrote about this.
Your favorite?
This is what they wrote about Elon Musk buying Twitter. They put, instead of a platform for free speech, Twitter is going to become this cesspool of lies, misinformation, and trolling negativity.
But that's what it is now.
Like, but that's exactly what it is now.
That's what it is, kids. Like Twitter has never been like. I think Twitter for 10 minutes when it was launched was nice.
Yeah. I actually have a Twitter example, right? So I've said it here in 200 episodes. I only am on Twitter, and I joined Twitter maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah, when you started
because
working...
since I'm working also in politics,
the world of politics,
you have to have Twitter, even if you don't tweet.
I have questions about that, but go ahead.
You have to have Twitter because you have to see what people are tweeting. Now, I have my own opinion about political Twitter, right? But I'm explaining that to say why I'm on Twitter. So even the political Twitter, I don't get involved. Do you know it's the only thing I really comment about in Twitter? I comment about Mariah Carey.
Which, if you've ever gotten into an argument with one of the Lambs, it's probably better to get into an argument with somebody from MAGA.
But it's funny you say that, of one of the Lambs, because so do you know what older Mariah Carey fans say? We were fans before Lambs.
Oh, I thought they were called goats.
No, we were fans before Lambs because I've been a fan of hers
before that term existed
since the very beginning.
Yeah. And
not all these freaking little kids that are like, "Oh my god, I started listening to Mariah Carey when Touch My Body came out." I'm like, really? I was like, I had already graduated law school when that happened.
You're so behind the curve.
But the reason I'm saying that is because it's entertainment, so it's fluffy.
It's fluffy, right.
So somebody this week on Twitter, regarding Mariah Carey, put something that like she doesn't get enough credit as a songwriter and a producer,
which you've said many times on this show,
right? And I responded to that, and I said something along the lines of like, Unfortunately, she doesn't. And, the fact that, when in her first several albums, she was so commercialized because she was like the face of Sony and Columbia Records,
Right.
and she was married to Tommy Mottola, that takes away a little bit of her cred because people are going to think that she's manufactured,
Right,
blah, blah, blah,
right,
blah,
right.
blah, part of the big machine, although really she's not. So that was sort of my tweet. Oh, you have to see what people respond. And mind you,
But you were defending
I
her.
even I have been a fan of hers since her very first song. I'm old enough. I didn't give my age, but I was like, I'm old enough
To know when she
to
debuted,
have,
yeah.
right, been a big part of her debut. And you have to see what people responded. Oh, because your ignorance is leaving out my ignorance is leaving out the fact that that people hate her because she's beautiful and she's sexy. And I'm like,
But what does that have to do with anything?
I don't know. And another person was like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about because people think
Mind you were defending her.
right." But the reason I bring that up was because I was defending her, right?
You weren't even arguing.
I also know how to write, and I know how to write very clearly.
What you're saying, right.
Right, and
You're not
I'm very
vague.
articulate, especially when I write. And here, like, these people were like attacking me, and I'm like, this is why, because you can't get something more not important
Right.
than talking about a singer, right?
Right.
And here are like people like attacking you that they don't, que no saben nada over entertainment,
but also attacking you when they are agreeing with you.
right?
But what I mean is now picture it somebody who disagrees with you.
right, but that goes to what we're saying, that
Right.
just Twitter's gross. It's gross.
Twitter is the worst.
And it's one of those things that like people are always complaining about trolling and always complaining about Twitter and how nasty people are on Twitter. But then why are you on Twitter?
Well, that's the question that I was going to ask you because you've said and there's a truth to it that you now are quote unquote on Twitter, to whatever capacity, because you're working in the realm of politics and you have to be there and this, that, and the other. My question is, why did the world of politics decide that it had to be on Twitter? Because honestly, it's just a bunch of people in a big old circle jerk dándose cranque.
Okay, I'm so happy you mentioned that.
Because it's just a bunch of people
I'm-
who live to apparently go on there just to get upset.
Right. I'm happy you mentioned that because I believe the same exact thing. So I follow obviously a lot of people that are liberal and progressive because that's who I am.
That's your right.
Right. And I'm not talking here about politicians. I'm talking about everyday people that have a large Twitter following.
Okay.
And I'm like, esta gente trabajan. Because they spend the entire day on Twitter. They tweet like 10 times a day. Right? And I'm here thinking like political Twitter. Like I could understand a candidate or a politician using Twitter
That's their job.
as a form of communication. Like, oh, this is what I'm doing this week. This is my schedule. I'm going to be here.
Right.
I'm going to be there. Today we're introducing
See you in
this bill.
Poughkeepsie.
All that.
Right.
Right? Because at the end of the day, it is a form of communication. But like political Twitter in terms of regular people and people that have large followings on Twitter that are political, to me, it's such a waste of time because you're talking to echo chambers.
You absolutely
right? Because what happens? You're talking to people that think like you. So everybody that thinks like you is going to be like, yeah, you
Right.
tell them.
Right.
Yeah, what you're saying is true.
Right, right.
And, and these people have to go down because they're all liars and all that. But then the people that are not in your echo chamber, that your ideological opponents,
Right.
are like, fuck you, and
Right.
you suck, and blah, 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 blah. You're not changing your mind. Nobody on political Twitter is having discourse.
Oh, that's not what Twitter's
Right,
for.
right. And then also, the stats about Twitter. I think only 12% of the population is on Twitter.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. And then that's just Twitter as a whole.
Right.
Political Twitter is an even smaller number of
Right,
that.
because most people probably follow celebrities.
Right.
And,
So
right.
political Twitter, I don't know the exact number, but it's less than 12%. Let's say it's 6%. Let's say that
By
half of the people on
Which
Twitter.
is probably not true.
Which is probably not 6%. Right. So, but let's say it's 6. Well, of that 6%, right?
You agree with 3.
Right. You agree with 3. right. Which is not really 3. So you're going out all of your way. And again, this is saying that it's a healthy 6%. Right.
Right.
So you're putting all this effort for 3% of the population. Right. Really?
Right.
Because that's not how you win votes, people. That's not how you win votes. That's not how you change minds.
No.
That's not how you get your message out there, through political Twitter. And like, I see these people that I know. People that I know that están en dientero tweeting. Oh, Ron DeSantis is a jerk. Retweet if you agree with me. Oh, Trump and his cronies are going to go down. Retweet if you agree with me. And I'm like, pero tú no trabajas.
You don't have anything else to do.
Like, I mean, don't you work? Like, don't you have hobbies? Like, like,
Take up gardening.
Don't you have like a significant other or like some things? Because I again, as a form of communication in terms of, this is my platform, this is what we're doing, this is what I'm doing.
I'm holding a meet and greet here.
Right. If you're a candidate,
Right.
tomorrow we're going to have a town hall. See me on,
This
Beat
show,
the Press
right,
on
right.
Sunday. As a form of communication, yes. Obviously, yes. But that's not what most people go on Twitter for.
No.
It's and I remember before I joined Twitter, I mean, we've had 200 episodes. We've been on the air for almost 5 years. You would tell me because I was not on Twitter. Right. So I didn't really know the
Twitterverse
sphere, And when I got on it, I'm like, this is like worse than like anybody ever told me. Like it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
And it feeds. It's a self-feeding monster.
Yeah.
Because it's that thing of like, I'm going to post something. I disagree with you, but I disagree with you disagreeing with me. Well, I disagree that you disagree with me disagreeing with you. And it's like, what are you getting out of this?
Yeah.
What are you getting out of this?
And everybody is appalled. And everybody is an expert.
Oh, well, yes.
Right. Everybody's appalled. Everybody's an expert. Everybody knows someone.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
so, and it's like, wow. And you know what? As far as Elon Musk buying Twitter, my problem with it is less ideological and more in terms of power. Like, I don't think that one person should have that much power over such a huge
global platform.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
global platform.
I agree.
I don't think that just because, and I believe this is sort of a hostile takeover, that somebody because...
Well, he just woke up one day and he's like, hey, you want this money? And they were like, okay.
That somebody because
I
they're
don't know if that qualifies as hostile, but...
If he's so rich and powerful that anybody can just be like, oh, I'm bored today, I'm going to buy Twitter, or I'm going to buy this, or I'm going to buy that. That's more of my problems with that. As far as people jumping off of Twitter, I mean, look, again... In 200 episodes,
the people who are jumping off Twitter are the people who quote unquote jumped off Spotify.
Right, but everybody knows where I stand ideologically. He has not said what he's going to do with Twitter. The sale hasn't even gone through.
Right.
And there's already people, the sky is falling. I mean, this is no different than when, the right left Instagram and Facebook for, what was it, Parler?
Yeah.
For Parler? And,
they left Twitter for Parler.
What?
They left Twitter.
Well, and they left Instagram.
Right.
I'm canceling my account and gave the finger to Mark Zuckerberg and to Twitter,
Right.
I'm going to Parler. Well, you're doing the same thing, right? Because actually, I would say it's even more premature.
Right.
Right? Right. The only thing I ask Elon to do is put an edit button.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no edit button.
You're right. I will say what I find interesting is from my day job perspective is there's all these think pieces now in like Ad Age and Ad Week about like, advertisers' concerns over Twitter and, what this means and will they leave? And I'm thinking, why are they still there?
What?
Why are advertisers even still on Twitter in its current form?
I don't know.
Because if you have such a problem with what it might quote unquote become, again, like we just said, it's not going from a utopia to a dystopia. It's already a problematic as fuck platform.
It is. And again, this is something that we've talked about many times in, the span of 200 episodes.
You casually drop it in there. You've been studying Thalia.
I just miss, and that's gone forever. That is not coming back. The days of innocent social media.
It's never coming back.
I mean, I think about my MySpace days, especially that's when I was up in Michigan. I was far from my friends and family. How like we would all post pictures, and and I remember
catching up.
And I remember when you joined MySpace, like all your friends from like high school would join. Oh my God, look at this person and all that. How everybody so with like in good faith. Right. Shared their pictures and all that stuff, and it wasn't about politics and it wasn't about ideology. It was just a good faith, and also we always talk about social media being ruined by politics and all that, but it's been ruined by a lot of things. Because you know what? I am so over like the good looking influencer, or like the good looking, even if they're not an influencer, maybe if they're a micro influencer.
Well, they're aspiring influencers.
Right, but like the
Right.
hot people, it's like, oh my God, I've already seen this a million
I
times.
was actually having this conversation the other day with a friend of ours. So we went out having some drinks and whatever, and we were talking about that. And he was saying, he's like, I'm just tired of like on Instagram, if I click on like, one profile pic of somebody,
everything that comes out on your
right,
page.
of somebody who's like hot, but maybe I didn't click on them because they're hot. I click because they're hot, but they're also funny, or whatever. That's it. Yeah. You're done. You're done.
Yeah.
You're just going to be served all these.
And the whole thing also with that's such a turn off from Instagram is the algorithm,
Which they recently changed. back
I
again.
have people on Instagram that I have followed for years since I joined Instagram in 2015 that never come up on my feed. Never.
Insta actually they recently changed that where you they reverted back to, I think it's what they call like the chronological timeline. So if you go through it now, what they have is it's based on people you follow when they posted. What they'll do is in between like every 3 or 4, let's say,
they put a sponsored
They-
post or suggested
or
post.
a suggested post.
Yes,
Post.
it's every
Yeah,
3.
Yeah.
And every suggested post, I click on the little thing. Do not show me suggested post for 30 days.
Amira.
Yeah. But again, it's like I'm so over like the wannabe hot people. It's like, you know what? Once you see one person
Yeah.
in underwear or lingerie or whatever, yeah, you're hot. Oh wow. But
Good for
yeah,
you, but-
I mean, yeah, oh my God, like you're
Congrats.
another person trying to be hot on Twitter. I'm sorry, on Instagram with like a million filters and angles and all that. And granted, we're all guilty to that because, that's not the reason I'm on Instagram, but I curate my pictures to a certain extent.
I do not.
I know you don't. Right.
I am still a pure Instagram
Right.
user.
I mean, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not posting that. Or like, okay, this is a flattering picture. This I'll post.
I mean, how
But-
many times haven't I posted that picture of me that looks like I'm from under a bridge?
Yeah, but you're a different example. But there's reasonable curation. I like that term, right? Reasonable curation.
That's like vaguely specific.
Right. There's reasonable curation, and then there's what we're talking about.
There's manicured.
There's a manicure. So, let me tell you. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We know things can feel overwhelming, from jobs to family to relationships, even finances. And despite the stigma from Hispanic families about airing our dirty laundry, we can all use someone to talk to during those moments of stress. Well, we're here to remind you that there's no shame in admitting that you need to speak with someone to work towards improving mental well-being. That's where BetterHelp comes in to, help. A customized online therapy provider, they offer therapy options on your time, whether it's via phone, video, text, or even live chat sessions with a therapist. BetterHelp's customized approach matches you with a therapist in under 48 hours, based on what you're experiencing to help you better understand yourself. And as a special offer for Pero Let Me Tell You listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/pero. It's already more affordable than in-person therapy, and now you can save on your first month. Everyone deserves to be happy, and BetterHelp has helped millions take their first step on that path. That's betterhelp.com/pero. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast episode. Anyway, so there's a story I want to share with you and with our listeners that happened to me actually yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And, well, you and I both say this, when something happens to us or we come across something, I always want to be like, let me call you and tell you, but I'm like,
But
nope, topic.
Exactly.
So I want to share something with you guys. Okay. So yesterday I had a doctor's appointment, and it was a 9 a.m. appointment, and it was for my CPAP. And for me, like, it was a quick appointment because I've already been on the CPAP thing for yes, I'm on a CPAP machine. It changed my life, people.
He sleeps now.
Yes. For those of you, especially, I mean, women use CPAP too, but for those of you
Yeah.
who think you might have sleep apnea or whatever, and you're not sleeping well, and you think you may be a candidate, I sound like a spokesperson.
You do.
Right? I mean, let me tell you something. It is
Listen, the
it is
CPAP.
a game changer.
The CPAP is the only reason Jose and I are still together.
It is a game changer, and it's not uncomfortable because it looks uncomfortable.
Which one do you have again?
I have the nose pillow.
Okay, like Jose.
Right. It looks uncomfortable, but it's not.
Yeah.
Actually, I love to feel the air going up my nose. And when you saw it, when we were in LA, that I was like, I literally fell asleep in the middle of the highway driving. Like,
Yeah. I'd be like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. No, you're not.
But anyway, so little side story. So yes, if you're thinking that you may have sleep apnea, get tested. You won't regret it. You're gonna love your CPAP machine. It's like you're airy.
Yeah. And they don't charge you extra to carry it on an airplane.
Yeah, you made the hand outside everything else.
Exactly. It's like going to Cuba.
It's like going to Cuba, la 40 libras.
Exactly.
Anyway, ahí mete Sazón Goya, las cadenas,
Los aretes.
you know, the pantyhose. Anyway, so I had an appointment yesterday, and it was a quick appointment. It was just to calibrate the machine and kind of see the data and all that. So it was going to be a quick appointment. So my appointment was at 9, and I actually, my doctor's office is very close to my house, which is close to Tristan's school. So after I dropped off Tristan in school, I went straight there. So I got there like at 8:45. I got there
so
early.
you were early.
I was early. So when I got there, there were 2 women already waiting there. An older white woman, white Caucasian, and a Haitian woman. And I knew that she was Haitian because I heard her accent.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, she's Haitian. And they were there because they were there early too. So I go, I check in. Now, do you go maskless to places already?
I do.
Okay. I've eased up on the mask to certain places. But the doctor's office, I was like,
Yeah.
let me take my mask.
Traditionally, sick people go there.
Right. Well, I mean, this was a sleep study place, but I'm like, let me just take the mask because it's healthcare and whatever. So, and I always have tons of masks on me. So I went in, and I actually went in with my mask covering just my face, my mouth, not my nose. So I go in, I check in, I sit down. So because I was early,
Right.
there was just the 3 of us.
Okay.
Bueno, a las 9, that place got packed.
Oh, wow.
Right, because there was several 9 o'clock appointments.
Oh, so everybody showed up at
Everybody
like
showed up
8:59.
at like 9 o'clock.
Right.
8:59, 9 o'clock. Right. So first comes in a lady and her friend, and they sit down. Then comes in another lady. Then comes in another lady. So at this point in time, there are 6 people in the waiting room.
Okay.
Right? And it's a small waiting room. Right? So, but everybody had a mask on. Okay. Then comes in this guy, probably in his 20s.
Okay.
And he did not have a mask on.
Okay.
And he comes in and he checks in. And I imagine he was a new patient because they give him the clipboard and they're asking him for all the your insurance
being a new
information and
patient.
blah, 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 and all that stuff. So he was at like the window a little bit longer.
Okay.
Ya empezó, the older white lady. Excuse me, can you please put on a mask?
Well, he doesn't have to.
And he kind of dismissed her.
Right.
He didn't say anything. And then it got the other lady riled. Oh, and they were, okay, let me give you a little bit of preface and listeners. They were already a little riled up because before those people arrived, like the 9 o'clock gang.
Okay, back when it was still a reboot of Three's Company.
Right. The Haitian lady was like, when, we've been waiting. When are they going to let us in? And the person in the desk was like, ma'am, your appointment is at 9 a.m., right? You could have gotten here an hour early, but if your appointment is at 9 a.m.
and there's nobody here,
your appointment is at 9 a.m.
Right.
So yeah, they were a little,
Okay.
And ellas dos estaban dando cranque,
Okay.
the 2 ladies. So yeah, we got off to a bad start. So the guy comes in, he's the 7th person in a small waiting room, and the lady was like, put your mask on. You should be wearing a mask and whatever. And he didn't say anything.
Right.
Pero seguían. oh, because you're being irresponsible. Put on a mask. And then she got the other ladies riled up.
She started riling everybody up.
The ones that came in after her, after Emilio. And she was like, oh, yeah, you should put on a mask because, this is a really small room and I have anxiety, say, okay. And that I'm totally pro-mask. I've always been pro-mask. I've always been, I've always criticized people that lose their shit because there's a mask mandate. It's
Right.
first world problems.
Definition.
And the door said mask suggested but not required.
Well, because that's where we are now.
Right. So they all get riled up and la cogen con el pobre chiquito. Like the poor guy. It's like, damn. You should be wearing a mask because, you think that because you're young, you could do whatever you want. And now it's like, okay, now you're speaking on behalf of the guy, right?
Right.
Oh, you think that because you're young, you could do whatever you want and blah, 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 blah. And they got so riled up that the office manager came out and said, excuse me, if any of you have a problem with him not wearing a mask, then you could go wait outside. Don't worry that when it's your turn, I will go outside and get you.
Being
She,
an angel.
put
Being
them
an
on.
angel.
And she's like, and a lady was like, one of the ladies was like, oh, but there's so many people in here, and you should make people wear a mask. And she's like, ma'am, we're a private office,
Yeah, we can do what the fuck we want.
we're following the CDC guidelines. If you have a problem with that, you could contact the CDC. She was like, boom.
She was not putting up with the
Yeah,
bullshit.
the office manager was like, yeah, not today, not today,
Not today, Satan.
not today. So. When she said that, they got.
I'm just picturing you literally at this point sitting back and mentally recording everything.
And that's exactly what was happening. I'm like, this is going on the podcast. So, but this is not what doesn't end there.
Oh, okay.
So after the office manager,
So she's already told everybody what to do.
yes, left. Because that's the problem, that people don't give a shit about this. Yeah. People were getting
Right,
riled
next
up.
level, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the people don't give a shit about this. And this guy here without a mask, and the guy very politely was like, "Ma'am, I'm vaccinated and boosted.
Right.
I'm okay. I don't even have a mask." Well, there's a Walgreens right there on the corner. Then go buy a mask, because you're so, you're young, and all you young people, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like, I'm about to say something. And then, this is why I brought this up. The white Caucasian lady says, you fucking Hispanic ass. No, you fucking Hispanic piece of shit. Right when she said that, the door opens. Darian! Darian Borges. And I'm like,
Now?
I was like, oh. So I go in.
Uh-huh.
When the when the nurse practitioner comes and she takes my blood pressure, I don't even know what she said because I was
You saw red.
enraged.
I'm surprised they didn't make you do the blood pressure again.
I was so enraged that I was like, I gotta tell this woman something. I have to say something because you know what? It is true. When you see something like that, you have to speak up.
Yeah.
You have
See something, say
to
something.
speak up. And I was like, oh my God. I was about to tell the nurse practitioner, I'm like, can you hold on
be right
1
back.
minute?
BRB.
But she was like, no, the doctor's coming to see you and it's going to be really quick. The doctor was there calibrating the machine and telling me all these things. And I'm like, Dad, apúrate. I got to get out of here.
They could have given you the meaning of life. You would not have heard it.
I was like, no. I'm like, sleep apnea. No, I'm going to have a heart attack.
An embolism.
like give me my stuff. And then he's like, oh, I go to the front desk to make your appointment in 3 months. I'm like, can I call later to make the appointment? Like,
I have to go to
I
somebody
need
to go
get
fuck
out.
themselves.
So I got my machine, and she was still there. They were all still there. I was in and out in like 10 minutes.
Okay.
They were all still there. So I got my machine, and I'm very diplomatic.
To a point.
I got, I'm there. She was sitting right by the exit. I have my back to the door with my hand on the door handle, and I go, ma'am, next time you want to tell someone to wear a mask, you shouldn't, and I did the air quotations, you shouldn't be such a fucking ignorant racist prick. Have a great day. And I walked away. And as I was saying that to her, I looked at the guy and I nodded at him. And I was like, I got you.
Well, not really. You left them there.
Well, no. But I had to say it. And I was like, Right. You fucking yeah. Next time you want to tell somebody to put a mask, don't be such a fucking ignorant racist prick. That's what I said. No, piece of shit. I used the same language that she said, and I left. And I was like, I feel good today.
Conquer the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck you.
It's like what I think is what always. What okay what
How does it always just devolve to that?
Okay, what I always think about this is that I, like you, like a lot of people, we get mad at people. We get mad at people of all ethnicities, colors, and races.
I am equal opportunity hater.
Right. Never in all the things that are going through my head that I'm going to tell you or that I want to be like,
Or about that.
is to attack your race, ethnicity,
Something that you
sex,
cannot change.
whatever. Like that has never crossed my. Like I've never gone there. Like
Right.
I may go other places. Like you
Right.
piece of shit. You
Right.
You like
Hijo de la gran puta.
Right.
Like,
mal
yeah.
nacido.
Right.
But never in my tirade against you
Are you going to call out somebody's ethnicity?
has it even crossed my mind.
Right.
So it's just I always find it. I find it disturbing, but interesting at the same time.
In a perverse
That
humor.
there's people that like the smallest little thing they go there.
It's because you're black. It's because you're this. It's because you're right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's fucking Hispanic piece of shit. And I'm like, but how did we go?
Y el pobre muchacho, he didn't say anything.
El pobre muchacho, the kid was probably like 25 years old. He was probably like, fucking shut up, boomer. You know, like
Just die already.
just like leave me alone. He was one of those, you know, sometimes when you're that young, I think when you're that young, you go one of two. You're either like, no, you know, or you're like, whatever.
Whatever.
It's like, whatever. And that's sort of what he was. And I saw that when I left, he had his AirPods on.
So he was
like,
he was done.
He was done.
Right.
He was like, say whatever you want to say.
I'm gonna listen to some Machine Gun Kelly.
Right. But it was just so like I felt like I had to say something because I was like it was eating me up alive. And you know what? And people like that, you need to stop them. You know, you need to tell them.
Put them in their place.
Yeah, you need to put them in their place because that's always unacceptable. But man, something as like rudimentary as this was, like we were just
Again, and look, like we've said many times, you wear a mask, I wear. I mean, not now. I'm way more lax about it. But if I walked into a place and somebody didn't have a mask, tú no te quieres poner la máscara, no te pongas la máscara. I don't care. Yo me lo voy a poner, and we're fine. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is it your problem?
Yeah,
whether
I mean,
somebody
look,
wears it or not.
I've been in places recently where let's say it's a crowded elevator and somebody comes in, somebody's gonna come in, and even they're not wearing a mask. And you're like, you know what? I'll wait for the next elevator.
But it's on you.
Right, it's on you. Right.
Right.
That's why I liked when the office manager was like, "Oh, if you're uncomfortable or anxious, you can wait outside. There's a lovely courtyard, you know, with a fountain, and there is
Very relaxing.
with a fountain and benches, and go. I'll go outside and get you. Don't worry.
Right.
But you're the one with the problem. Like you're the one who's annoyed.
Right.
Especially, you know, I could understand if this was a year ago or 2 years ago.
If this was like 2
you know.
months after it started.
Right. But we're in a different time now, and again, everybody knows we're both pro-vaxxers,
Right.
pro-mask.
Right.
But again, but this is not even the issue here. This is not even why I brought it up.
No. But that's
it's,
what
it's
it,
the
it,
fact
it
that
devolved.
you know it's a para que tú veas, in Miami, Florida, which is a predominantly
Latino.
Latin area. You know, you still have racist pricks out there, and that's why you got to tell them in their face.
As
And
you
you know, and I love telling people like that off in a diplomatic way because I think that always catches people off guard. You know,
because they expect you to be like, rah, rah, rah.
fucking bitch. You know,
Right.
And I was like, have a great day. And then I just walked away because I was like, I ain't engaging with you. Like,
If I were you, I would have called back the office and been like, la vieja racista esa.
ya se fue.
Ya se fue? Or did she get even more riled up after I left?
Yeah. I was like, ma'am, you need more than a CPAP machine.
I'm not going to say what I think she needs.
So yes, listeners, the point is when you meet somebody who's a racist prick, you tell them off.
And then some.
And then share your stories on Pero Let Me Tell You.
Yes, let us know.
Please DM us and let us know. We'll be more than happy to share your stories of stopping racists. That should be a segment in our show. Stop. And this week,
Stop the racism.
On this week, stopping the racist segment.
Can you imagine?
Jimmy from North Carolina tells us of an encounter that he had at Trader Joe's.
I'm sure that has happened.
Right.
I'm certain.
Although I don't think Trader Joe's is a breeding ground for racists. But then again,
You'd be surprised.
But then again,
they're very affordable. Everybody loves a bargain.
that is true.
Yeah. So I saw somebody post something on Instagram. It looks like it's some type of whatever, like an account or something. So it's not a person. That I read it and I wanted to read it to you because it seems to me, I actually kind of chuckled because as I'm reading it, I could tell that it was written by white people. Because it's literally, so here's the post. It says, it's like pretty with colors and whatever. It says, "Come home and bring your laundry. Just come home. I don't understand the whole I got them to 18 method as a parent. Having children is a lifetime commitment. Maybe I'm just different, but I want my kids to come take groceries and toilet paper out of my cabinets when they're 25. I want them to stop for dinner when it's their favorite meal at age 34. I want to watch their eyes sparkle when they are opening gifts they wanted for Christmas at 40. I want them to know I'm one call away and it doesn't stop at age 18. They are forever my kids, not temporary assignments. Always come home." And all I could think of was like,
Written by any Latin parent.
right, and all I could think of was like, we don't have to say that. Like it's so given. Like as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is definitely not a black parent. This is not an Italian parent. This is not a Latino parent. This is a WASP.
Yeah.
Like this is the most white Anglo-Saxon Protestant thing I've ever read in my life.
Typical call that I get in the week from my parents. Oye, estamos haciendo garbanzo para el niño. Vamos a pasar por allá más tarde para llevarle los garbanzos al niño. And then Tristan's like, "Ay, garbanzos again?"
I'll eat them.
But,
You've never offered me the garbanzos.
okay, well, next time I will.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, but that's our life now.
Right. That's why I was like, you know what? I'll just.
I mean,
read
I
it
totally
because-
agree with that sentiment.
but we don't have to say it. I feel like for us, it's just
No, that's
Duh.
hashtag growing up Hispanic.
right. It's just like and
And I'm telling you, one of the most culture shock moments I've had, and I've said this story several times on the podcast in 200 episodes, was the time that when I was up in Michigan, that a few of friends of mine,
Oh, yeah.
all white girls, from like the Midwest and New England, were talking about some guy that they liked, that they thought he was like cute, and they're like, "Oh yeah, but he's such a loser because he lives at home with his parents." And I'm like, "How old is he?" And he's like, "Oh, 24, 25." I'm like, "Well, I'm 24, and prior to me coming up
it's like,
here,
I'm not with my parents now.
I only do not live with my parents now because
We're in a different state.
I'm here,
Right.
Because otherwise,
if they lived even an hour away,
I would be living with my parents, like, because that's just what you do.
but you had a friend up there who lived about an
I had a
hour
friend up there
away
who lived
from their parents.
who lived an hour away from her parents, and she wouldn't see her parents until term break. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, if I lived an hour away from my parents, I would commute.
Yeah, like why would I not?
Like that would if I lived an hour away from my parents, commuting to school, that wouldn't have even been like a thought.
Right, to not commute.
Right. I always say this, that when my cousin
Oh yeah, you've told the story here.
was, I don't know,
20s.
He was
in his 20s. No, late 20s.
no, he was like in his late 20s, almost 30.
Oh, okay.
When he started working for NBC West Palm.
Yes, in Palm, yeah.
What? 2 counties up.
A full 90 minutes with traffic.
With traffic on I-95. He moved to West Palm because the commute from here to West Palm on the daily, okay, that will be a little too much,
Fair,
right?
fair.
Although you can take the Bright Line.
Yes, you can. You can take it now. Yeah. Well,
but not then. He moved to West Palm, which again, for those listeners who are not from South Florida, there's Miami-Dade County, Broward, and West Palm.
yeah.
And Broward is not a large county. So it's not like,
You're like in and out.
one of these counties that last like 400 miles, right?
Right.
When my cousin moved to West Palm, my aunt almost died. She's like, Rogelito se fue de la casa. Oh my God. I'm like, but he's in West Palm.
Like you can literally just go on a weekend.
Yes. I think they listen to Y100 there too.
They do. It is. We are still within the
Yeah, if you're still listening to Y100
and Power 96 and all that, you're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
And this was like drama that I remember that este weekend vamos a ir a visitar a Rogelito. And I'm like if he lived in, Estonia. Like
Estonia.
Where
That would be quite a drive.
right?
Yes, it would
right?
be.
So yeah, I mean we talked about that 100 times. That is something that has always I mean again we say it all the time. I think it's the biggest difference in terms of culture
I literally passed by my parents' house on the way here tonight.
Yeah, that's the difference between Hispanic culture, I think, and like white American culture, is that and in a way, it all depends on the way that you see it, right? Because the white perspective, I don't hate it either, because
It's about independence.
From their point of view, and you can't criticize it. It's like, I'm going to give you all the tools that you need to set you up.
Now go.
I'm going to set you up. Now go. Now we are going to enjoy our life.
Right.
We're going to we paid our dues. We raised our children.
We did our job.
We did our job. We set you to go out there.
It's your turn.
We gave you a nice little nest egg. Now we're going to get on a Winnebago and go, or get on a Cosmos tour of Europe and go.
We are going cruising.
Whereas us,
Right.
it's like La Niña. Actually, I have another really funny story that I know I haven't said in the podcast.
Oh.
So regarding this topic, and I know I haven't said it.
Have I heard the story?
I'm sure you. Well, of course you have. Some years ago, I was at Kendall Regional Hospital with. I don't know why I was there, because I feel like Kendall Regional Hospital, everybody's family goes there
At some point.
at some point.
Yeah.
So when I think of my times there, I'm like, I don't even know who was there at the time. I just know that I was there. And I was in some office waiting for something. Obviously, it wasn't for me. It was, I don't know what I was doing there, but I was in some office waiting for something. And there was a lady who worked there talking to her coworker.
Okay.
And she's like, ay, porque, and this was during Christmas.
Okay.
And she's like, and I remember this perfectly well. Like, I'm like, it's happening right now in front of me. Ay, porque, and I remember the guy's name was Freddy. Ay, porque es que Freddy, ahora viene la crisma y sabe, niña, que tengo que ir a comprarle los regalos, porque si yo no le compro los regalos a Freddy, entonces imagínate, tú sabes cómo son los muchachos, no hacen nada, y él tiene que comprarle regalo a no sé quién, y a fulano, y bla, 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 and no, porque Freddy es un loco, y es un irresponsable, y no, siempre es lo mismo.
Freddy's a total piece of work.
Freddy no hace nada, y yo le digo, Freddy, tienes que comprar esto, y todo soy yo. And the lady asked her, ay, ¿qué edad tiene Freddy? Ay, 52 años.
52.
And I was like, wow. Even for like hashtag growing up Hispanic, I'm like, even for my standards, that's a little, because the way that she was talking about it, it sounded like a 20-year-old guy, like
52?
Maybe a 20-year-old guy that worked someplace, and it would be nice if he gave like his boss or
Right,
his colleagues,
right.
a present for Christmas,
Right.
un acuerdo, just a little something, especially guys, that are that young,
They don't really know how to. Yeah,
they don't fight back at racist people in
Right. So he doesn't know how to buy. Right.
So, and this guy is like not on top of presents. So I could totally see that setup, right?
Okay.
Right. But no. Freddy was 52.
52.
Yeah. Talk about failure to launch.
Sarah Jessica Parker would have a field day with him.
Yeah. So, but I love it. I love it that my parents are, in my business. Your parents, I feel, well, no, because your parents call you a lot too.
They call me a lot. Actually, I helped my mother just this morning make an appointment for a COVID test.
Yeah. And what I especially love about the stories about your mom is that your mom was raised here. Your mom went to high school here.
My mom got here I think maybe 5th grade.
Right.
So she's been here her whole life. I mean,
yeah. So it's like, I love the fact that she doesn't put gas in her car.
she does now.
She does now.
No, like a de otra.
Really?
Well, who? Because the thing is also like there are times where like she has because remember.
So
now
your mom started to put gas in her car in her late 50s, early 60s.
Yes, because remember now that my mother drives down to Homestead to visit my grandmother, or whatever, there's just times where she has to put gas in the
Right.
car.
Right.
But yes, my mother still to this day laments the death of the full service
She
station
needs to move to Oregon
or New Jersey.
or New Jersey. But in New Jersey, is it optional or is it mandatory?
I think it's mandatory because I know it's mandatory in Oregon.
In Oregon, it is.
Yeah,
And I found out when I was driving in Oregon, the first time I got off the gas, and I'm there, and the man's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Gassing my car." And he's like, "You can't gas your car here." And I'm like, "What do you mean? This is a gas station."
Were you were you getting ready to be all you fucking racist?
No, no, because there was an exchange that happened. I'm like, "What do you mean I can't gas my car here? It's a gas station." He's like, "Sir, this is full service." I'm like, "But I want self-service." But there was a back and forth until he told me, and I think he finally
Right, you're a
realized, he's like,
tourist,
"Sir,
yeah.
in Oregon, it's all mandatory full service."
right.
So I was like, "Oh." Well then, let me get back in my car.
And you do your thing.
And I remember when he was gassing the car, I felt very uncomfortable.
Yeah, what do you do?
I was like, do I say thank you? Do I tip him? Do I just sit here? Do I put on the radio? Do we talk?
What is the protocol?
Like, what do we do?
I remember the full service station growing up.
No, me too.
I
But
do, and I remember. But again, I was a kid, so I was like in the back seat. But my mother would just drive up, and she'd be like, yeah, fill her up, or ponle de jodare, or here's la tarjeta, or I don't know, whatever.
yeah, here's my Amico card.
Yeah, back when you had a gas card.
Right. The Amico card.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the Amico card used to come with a book of coupons.
Oh, that I don't remember.
Oh, we use those coupons. They had Pizza Hut and Godfather's Pizza coupons.
Godfather, does they still exist?
Godfather's Pizza? No. We would have had it recently.
No, but maybe they don't have it here, but maybe they had it somewhere else.
No. So something that premiered this week that I wanted to bring up, I think our listeners would enjoy, and I know you probably enjoy.
Okay.
Have you heard? I don't think you've probably seen it, but heard of the documentary that came out this week about Abercrombie and Fitch?
I keep wanting to watch it. Okay. I keep passing by it, and I'm like, I want to watch it, but so far the only thing it's done is given me the biggest desire to buy Fierce.
Okay, so one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is because it's topical. But to your credit, you have always been an Abercrombie hater.
Yeah, I was never. I mean, even when I bought some shirts.
Right. You actually
I think most of my shirts are hand-me-downs
are
you.
from me.
From you,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can think of like 4 or 5 shirts that I gave you.
that I still have. I think one or two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, because you were, I remember you were an Abercrombie hater.
Yep.
So anyway, so you were always on them.
I knew.
You knew.
I didn't know, but I knew.
So listeners,
I will say I really like Fierce though.
the smell, the
Yeah.
cologne, I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
Like can I still buy it somewhere?
Yeah, no, the Abercrombie's still around.
Okay, good. Okay.
They closed the one in Dayton, but the one in Aventura is still open.
Oh, okay.
So, listeners, this week a
Netflix?
documentary on Netflix came out called White Hot, which is called White Hot: The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch. And a lot of times when these documentaries come out, like I love me a good documentary, but you have to always proceed with caution,
Right.
because documentaries, as we know, can be extremely skewed.
Well, they have a narrative.
Right, but I didn't know. I saw a lot of people posting about it, but I didn't know the real content of the documentary.
Okay.
Right, I didn't know what it was going to be centered on. Again, I had seen people post about it, but I hadn't read any comments. I didn't know they were doing a documentary, so I just saw a couple of the reposts of the ad of the cover of the documentary, and then because I shopped so many years at Abercrombie and Fitch, I had an interest in it, so I watched it. So
And then you remembered New Kids on the Block had a bunch of hits.
right,
Right.
and Chinese food really does make me
It makes
sick.
you sick, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that comes out in the documentary.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, of course.
Well,
How
duh.
can a documentary
Yeah.
about Abercrombie and Fitch not
mention elephant?
So it talks about the history of the company, which the company had been around since like 1860
Really?
something. Yes. Abercrombie and Fitch opened up as a sporting sun-dried goods store. Sundries.
yeah,
Sundries?
there's no such thing as a sun-dried good.
What are sundries? Like, I just think about like it's a sunblock.
No, sundries, and I'm probably going to get this completely wrong, but sundries, I think, are like things that you take with you to go camping and
Can
things
you
like
edit that out? I just like totally discredited myself.
No, I think it's great.
Whatever, I said Cahoon Burger.
Exactly.
Anyways, so it talked about like the history of Abercrombie and Fitch and blah 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 blah. So then it was sort of like a dead brand.
Okay.
So then the president of Abercrombie and Fitch, and we're talking about now,
When this was like what, mid to late 90s?
what?
Like when it kind of turned around, or when they figured it's a dead brand, let's do something with it.
Yes, it was this guy called when they did the turnaround. It was Mike Jeffries. He turned around Abercrombie and Fitch in like the late '80s, right? Mm-hmm. When he started putting clothes.
You know what sundries are?
What?
This is the literal definition. Various items not important enough to be mentioned individually.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's the definition of it?
Yes. So I was wrong too.
Say that again?
So sundry, which is the singular of sundries, is various items not important enough to be mentioned individually. So, an example, a drugstore selling magazines, newspapers, and sundries.
What are the sundries?
Everything else.
It could be cough drops and
It's a prettier way of saying etc.
etc. Right? So anyway, so this guy Mike Jeffries takes a hold of Abercrombie and Fitch in the late '80s, early '90s, and turns it into what we ended up knowing. And he was a really eccentric character and all that. What was interesting, which again, it's all these things that now, looking at it retrospectively, it was always there. It's just that again, you didn't know it was systematic, right? At least to this level, right? So basically, he wanted Abercrombie and Fitch to be an elite, exclusive brand
fair
that
enough.
you can aspire to.
Which all brands want to be that.
Yes, but he specifically wanted it to be about like what you said, WASPs, like upper class, like Ivy League, like white kids.
Oh, okay.
Right? And he very much was of the opinion that the brand was not for everybody and everybody should not be wearing the brand. Like, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, this was the company mantra. This wasn't like...
Yeah, that's one of those things that you don't say it out loud.
Right. This wasn't like a de facto situation. This was like the company mantra.
He said the quiet part out loud.
Right. So basically what happened, and now in retrospect, it all makes sense. Right. So the image of Abercrombie and Fitch was of a white male. Like blonde, white, all-American male.
Oh, total corn-fed, yeah.
And what I always found interesting was that I always thought, we all know that the imagery of Abercrombie and Fitch in its peak was like very homoerotic.
Oh my God, totally.
Like the catalogs of Abercrombie and Fitch could have
had no clothes.
Right. They had no clothes, but they could have been at like a gay coffee shop, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or bookstore, right?
Yeah.
And I always found that a little odd. Curious, and I'll tell you why. Because the store was for men and women, for guys and girls, right? Generally, they have more images of just women in general because even when it's for both sexes, because
demographically,
women shop more and are more into fashion and all that. So I always found it kind of like, I wonder why, like, and it wasn't like 51-49 male. It was like 75% male, and every now and then.
But you would walk by the average Abercrombie, and they would literally have like a shirtless guy,
standing
outside,
that comes out of the documentary
you with the thing.
And then they also said that their stores, which again, when I watched the documentary, I'm like, oh my God, yes, their stores, all the windows were always covered.
Yeah.
And it just had a picture of like the naked guy at the entrance.
Right. Well, the most conservative of the pictures
in the entrance. And then in the stores inside were dark with blasting music. But the reason they did that was because of exclusivity. Not everybody like belongs here.
We don't want you to see inside.
So it was a bit intimidating to go into Abercrombie in a certain way. And then this is where it gets really interesting. So they wanted the people that worked there to be, again, white and blonde and have that all-American look.
Oh, that's why it's called white hot.
Yes. So and also white hot, the when a business is white hot.
No. But I think it's a double play.
But yeah, it's a double entendre. And then also, so they talked about how other people, like whether it was black employees or like Filipino employees or like Latin employees, anybody that wasn't white and blonde, they would employ them, but they wouldn't give them. They would give them night shifts or have them work in the stock room.
What the hell did they do in Miami?
And you know what? I'll tell you what they did in Miami, and I have a story for you. The Abercrombie and Fitch in Dadeland. Again, I know this because I used to go to Abercrombie and Fitch all the time. When you would go into the Abercrombie and Fitch in Dadeland, you'd be like, "Well, this is not the demographic of Miami of the people that live here." You know why? Because they were all students.
There you go.
And then it all started to make sense to me because I have two examples. When I was working in Big Law, and so this was like over 10, 12 years ago. When I was working in Big Law, I had a colleague of mine that she was also an attorney, that she was Indian American. Gorgeous girl. Gorgeous. And she had worked in Abercrombie and Fitch during college. And I remember that she told me something like that, and this was like 12 years ago, that she's like, yeah, I started working in Abercrombie and Fitch, and they never put me in the register. They would always put me in the back room folding clothes because, I don't know, because I was a brown girl. But I remember when she told me, she kind of said it like kind of in passing, kind of like
a joke almost.
So yeah, like, I don't know, maybe because I was a brown girl, might be gorgeous girl. And
this chick wasn't good enough to be in front.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought about her. And then, you know who else I thought about? A very good friend of ours, her spouse, worked at Abercrombie and Fitch for many years, and he's a little bit browner, and he worked in the stock room.
Oh.
Do you remember when he worked in Abercrombie and Fitch?
I had totally forgotten until now.
He did. He worked for many years at Abercrombie and Fitch. And I remember that he would always be wearing their clothes. Because he had to, you have to.
You have to wear the clothes whenever you work.
So
for
I
a
remember,
retailer.
he's never really been into fashion. That I remember that when he would be wearing Abercrombie stuff, I'm like, oh, I really like those sandals, or I really like that shirt, because he worked for a few years and he would work the night shift. He would restock the room or whatever, and I'm like, huh? I'm like, look at that.
Not only is it true because you're showing it to me, but now I have personal examples.
Two people that I know that fell in. And then it was like really messed up because they got into trouble with this. Because what would happen is that like different people would go around, different scouts would go around the country to the Abercrombie stores, and they would tell the managers, you need to put the white blonde people to work here. There's too much diversity here. Yes, that's why I tell you this wasn't a de facto situation where just coincidentally the white kids were applying and getting the jobs.
Right.
No, like this was the company policy. This was totally like systematic.
So corporate was like, it's too dark in the front.
Right. It's too dark in the front. You need to whiten this up. Right. And then the problem was that then these managers were like, I had to tell these kids.
Right.
Like,
you are not doing a bad job.
Right, because the thing is that they wouldn't fire them. They just wouldn't give them hours.
So you would quit.
Right. So you would quit.
Right.
And then, in the documentary, a few of the managers would be like, I would have to face these kids and tell them, oh, I didn't schedule you this week, and come up with some lie when I knew that it was corporate who was telling me to put them, not to give them hours,
get rid of them,
or give them the graveyard shift. So it was totally systematic. So what I found really interesting was that then they get called out on it, and they actually get sued. And they're like, okay, no, we're going to change this.
How was it found out? Just
because a lot of
people started talking,
right? And then they were saying that because this was before social media really took off.
True.
Right. This was in the earlier 2000s.
True.
People didn't have a platform to like share their similar stories. Because they were like, this was happening everywhere. It's just that you didn't have the tools and the platforms that we have now to be like, hey, this is happening here.
Right.
Oh, but it's also happening here and here and here.
Right.
So they sued. So then
there was no West Elm Caleb.
Right. So So they're like, okay, we're gonna diversify Abercrombie and Fitch. They brought in this guy who's black, that he's like the diversity and
Expert or whatever.
inclusion, expert and all that. So now they started hiring more people of color that run the gamut, from African American to Latin to Filipino to Asian Pacific, whatever. But it didn't stop there, because now they were hiring different types of people, but they all had to be attractive and thin. And then Mike Jeffrey gives this interview.
Oh, so Mike Jeffries is still in charge at this point.
Well, not now.
No.
But yes, even after this.
Right.
So he gives an interview to, I think, Salon.com or Salon Magazine, where he was like, yeah, Abercrombie and Fitch is an elite brand, and we don't want like the fat people wearing our clothing. And yeah.
Again, you said the quiet part out loud. Guy.
No, exactly. He said it full blown in an interview. But when that interview is published, it didn't get any traction.
Really?
And then years later, this guy found it online, and he did this like whole petition, and then that's when everything blew over, and
because social media was bigger.
Right, and he had to leave. This was like now like 2013, 2014.
Okay.
Right? When the guy found it,
and
then the interview at that point was like 6 years old.
Okay.
And then that's when everything flipped over for Abercrombie. But it's not surprising looking at it retrospectively.
But it's surprising how just blatant they were about it.
That is the part.
Because look, there's a certain inherent understanding, for better or worse, right, wrong, when it comes to retailers and fashion, that, up until maybe, let's say, the last 5 years or so, when we started to be more about body positivity and diversity, that it was going to be, like you said, at the very best case scenario, yes, everybody's invited as long as you're skinny and pretty.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it was fashion, and that's what fashion was, and blah, blah, blah. But you wouldn't say it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was just kind of, we all know this is happening.
No, this was he was
But,
unapologetically.
He was just like, no.
Like, no. You got to be white and pretty to wear our clothing. That's who we want of our customers, because he wanted.
He was the fashion version of of the with the, like on Grindr, no fats, no femmes, no Asians.
Right. He was like, this was like an exclusive club. It was like a fraternity. Right. And
where everybody was
which
naked.
is just a stupid business approach, because I don't have to be a business. I mean, obviously you want your brand to kind of be
aspirational.
Yes.
But you don't have to be, breeds that in a way.
Right, but you don't have to be a racist.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a way to cultivate.
Like, the lady in the waiting room.
Getting her CPAP.
Yeah.
Por eso que tiene problemas de respiración.
And then just a bunch of stuff come out in the show, in the thing.
Is it a?
It's a documentary, and it has.
It's not a series. It's not a mini series.
No, it's just a documentary. Okay. And then the photographer, who was responsible for all those years of ads,
the catalogs.
His name is Bruce Weber. Like, he's come under fire too, because a lot of the models now are saying that he would like harass them, and they would he'd be like, hey, come over to my house for dinner, and make advances. And like this one model that they interviewed for the documentary, he's like, oh, he called me over to come over to his house for dinner, and I was like, I'm not going to your house for dinner. And like the next day, I was sent home, and my contract with them ended and terminated. So now there's also allegations of that and whatever.
Del convertible casting sofa.
Yes. So it's incredible that such a huge company at a time and store, like, all of this was going on.
And again, they weren't hiding it.
Right. But when I watched it, everything made sense. I was like, wow. Like, the two people that I know that worked at Abercrombie that, weren't white and blonde.
Right. They were in the back.
They told me this, and they told me this years ago. Like, it wasn't like now they came out with it. And I'm like, oh, but yeah, no. Like, they told me this years ago, and like this was happening. Like, it was shocking to me, but it wasn't shocking to me. With that said,
it's good to have confirmation.
With that said, I drank the Abercrombie juice, Kool-Aid, because I loved their clothes.
You really did.
I did. I still do. I still have all my clothes from Abercrombie, because their clothes are actually good quality.
It is.
Yeah.
And their muscle tees are
And I actually wasn't into the graphic tees, because they actually got in trouble for the graphic tees. They had like very derogatory.
Well, it's because of the graphic tees that I got, felt up by Thalia.
Oh yes, the Squeeze Me one.
Squeeze
that
Me,
was from
yes, that was from
Abercrombie.
Abercrombie.
Right. I love their plaid shirts. I love their jeans. I still have their underwear. I still wear their underwear.
Really?
I do. I love the well because that's the aesthetic that I like. I like that.
No, I'm just surprised that the underwear is like still
Well, because
viable.
I still have clothes from there that I bought in the last few years.
Oh, okay. In the last few.
Yeah, no, I didn't stop shopping at Abercrombie 20 years ago.
Oh,
Like,
okay,
I
okay,
continued
okay.
to
Oh,
shop
okay,
there.
okay, 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 okay.
That's the aesthetic that I like.
Yeah,
I
that's
kind of
true.
like that rustic, kind of plaid, worn out aesthetic.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
people who would go to a cabin but don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's why, what's my favorite store? What's my favorite store?
Well, I mean, when I think of you, I think of the Gap.
Of course, the Gap.
yeah.
I mean, the Gap is not as rustic as Abercrombie, but
It's more prep.
It's more prep, but it's that's the
See.
type of look that I like. But yeah, like watch it, like listeners watch it.
I will watch it while wearing one of my Abercrombie muscle tees that you gave me.
It's white hot,
It's apparently.
and they were talking on how. That's why you would enjoy the documentary. How they would spray the cologne everywhere.
Yes.
and I'm like,
You'd walk by the store outside.
I have a candle from Bath and Body Works that's I think it's mahogany and teak wood.
That is my favorite.
That's because it smells like the cologne.
That
from
is my
Abercrombie.
favorite. That is the one that I always buy.
Yeah, because it smells like that.
smells like
Abercrombie.
Fierce.
I love that smell. So I'm like, okay, we can't hate on that.
No. La colonia no tiene la culpa.
And you know what was also really interesting? That again, my coworker back in Big Loss, she would tell me, and they said it, and this is one of the things I remember her telling me the most. And they say it in the documentary that the people out front, the white and blonde people in the front of the store, they really weren't there to help you.
No, they were there to draw you in.
Right. And even when you were in there, like they weren't very helpful. Like, oh, can you get this size for me? Or no, they would just either open up the dressing room for you or they'd ring you up.
Right.
Or, they'd be stocking stuff on the shelves, but they weren't there to help you.
Right.
Right. And I remember she would tell me that she's like, yeah, like people there, they're not supposed to really help the customer. So it's like, why are you there? So it's just like, it all like came full circle for me. So yeah.
It's so funny you say that now. I got a total flashback years ago. I was at, not Abercrombie, I was at a Diesel store on the beach. And I'll never forget, this was like a good 10, 15, 20 years ago. So, okay, I was a lot thinner, younger, I'll never forget, I asked the one kid that was working at the Diesel store, this little twink, I was like, yeah, hi, do you have these in like a size 33? And he looked at me like I had just asked him, like to bring me a size 3000
Right.
as something came out of my neck.
He was probably a size 26, 28.
Maybe.
Right.
I just had that flashback. It's like, fuck you, person at Diesel. Shit, make me feel bad about 33.
Oh, 33. So yeah, the story of Abercrombie. What's your favorite retailer? Listeners, chime in. What's your favorite retailer? Mine
I
is
used to
Chess
love
King.
Structure
Well,
in its heyday.
Yeah.
And then Express for a while after that.
I haven't been to Express in a while
Same.
because
Well, I don't really go to the mall, so.
okay, millennial.
No, but I just don't go to the mall. And for the last 2 years I've been
I
working out of
just
home.
feel
I
that
don't have
like
clothes to wear.
that Express now for men. Listeners, what's your favorite retailer? As I said, I feel that Express for men right now, it's either work clothes or clubbing clothes.
But that's true.
Right? So
That's true.
if you're not working in the office and you're not going clubbing,
We're not for you.
I mean, they have some stuff or whatever.
I'm sure they have
I like. I
lounge
go
bands.
every now and then inside Express, the one in Westland Mall in Hialeah, and I mean, they have like nice stuff
They do
here
have,
and there.
the thing with Express is that they have like nice things that's not expensive. Like,
Right.
it's nice clothing para una boda or
Right.
something like that.
Right,
doesn't
but
break
it's
the
like,
bank.
yeah, right. I'm not working in like an office that I have to wear this now,
Right.
And I'm not going clubbing, so
Well, when I go clubbing in just jeans and a t-shirt. So.
right. But I feel that Express is like nice clubbing clothes.
No, right. That's what I'm saying. But even when I do go clubbing, I'm just
Right.
going in jeans and a t-shirt.
Right, no, but there's some clubs or bars that you go to that are more casual.
No, right. I'm not going to 11.
Right. No, I feel that back in the day, this would have been like, let's see, Express would have been like some club in the Grove.
Like Oxygen.
Yeah, like that type of,
Okay.
yeah, that type of. But Structure, what I actually miss from Structure is their underwear. They had really good underwear.
They really did.
did-
The
they
boxer
did.
briefs.
Yeah, they didn't translate into Express.
No. They left that behind. They were in such a rush at Express they didn't take the underwear.
My favorite retailer is Kmart. You know, there's only 3 Kmart's left, and one of them is actually down the street
In 3 Kmart's left in
in the world.
In the world?
Yeah, well, in the United States, the world.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh shit!
yeah. I think 2 of them are in Florida.
I didn't know we had gotten to that point.
Yeah. I've gone to the Kmart here, which is not far from my house. I've gone several times with Tristan, and I've taken pictures of him in there because I want him to remember it. Because it's not going to make it.
It's a matter of when, not if.
Right, it's not going to make it.
Yeah.
So I want him to remember Kmart because Kmart was such a big part of, my life, of people our age,
Yeah.
of our lives.
You don't want to make the same mistake as with Sears.
Well, the Sears and International Mall before it closed, I took Tristan there several times too, and I have him photographed all over the store.
I think the one in the Gables is still open.
The one in the Gables is still open. There's more Sears left, not a lot, but there's more than 3. But yeah, I've taken him because Kmart. I mean, Kmart in the 80s and even 90s was like. I remember when we used to go to Kmart just to have Little Caesars pizza.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the slushy.
yeah. I already told you my story about the slushie. So, listeners, those of you who grew up going to Kmart, there's some listeners that we have that are like 23, 24.
We're like, what's a Kmart?
So they're like, what? But for those of you who are older, you remember when you would walk into Kmart, they would have that icy with a white polar bear.
Yes.
So my aspirational
Okay.
moment was to get an icy, the red icy, right? Because that's the one that they had in like the machine spinning around.
Yeah.
And my parents, like growing up, I don't know if it's because my parents didn't have a lot of money or whatever. My parents never got me anything I wanted. like I wasn't the type that I'd go to the store. I'm like, I don't want this, and they'll be like, oh yeah.
I never got things.
Right. No, I didn't get an icy. Right. Like that wasn't my. That's something. That,
No.
Okay. My parents.
Es agua sucia.
Okay. My parents, when growing up, when we went to McDonald's, my parents wouldn't get me a Happy Meal.
No.
No, they'd get me like a cheeseburger. A cheeseburger.
Oh yeah, no. I had like all the toys from the
Right.
Happy Meal.
I had, because I remember that my grandmother, when she would go to McDonald's,
Okay.
she would get me the Happy Meal. But my parents were like, no. Don't you remember when the Happy Meal in the 80s came out with like the crayons? No. They came out with the Crayola crayons, and then you could draw the Happy Meal. You could color it.
I have vague recollection of that.
Anyway, so finally, holy tanto that I'm like, I want the slushie. Every time we would go to Kmart, I want the slushie. Finally, my parents got me the slushie, and they got me the wrong one. They got me the Coke slushie, which is brown. I wanted the red one.
Okay, wait. Is this in a weird way the origin story of the Publix cake?
I had never thought about it that way, but yes. Okay, because what happened is, remember the Kmart in Coral Way? The
Yeah,
one
of
we
course,
always-
yeah.
Remember when you would walk in, the right in front of you was like the little snack bar.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That had the slushie with
And
the polar bear.
right?
With
He
the
was
white-
wearing a red sweater, right?
with the white and blue
Yeah.
cup, right? And then there was this huge like advertisement of a slushie that was
Right.
spinning.
It was called Icy. I
That
think,
that it was your traditional, your red
your
one.
strawberry.
That is the one that I wanted.
Right.
And then every time I go, Mama, I don't want it. Yo quiero slushy. No. Mamá, yo quiero slushy. No, eso cuesta muy caro. Mamá, yo quiero slushy. No. Tú eso no te lo vas a comer. It was always something. Pero el tipo que vendía churro in the white truck in the front.
Oh, I loved his churros.
They would always buy his churros, right? Because they liked churros. But no, little Dariencito wanted the slushy. No, we could never get the slushy. Then finally, one day, with much fanfare, I remember it was my father. He's like, "Mira, te compramos el slushy or el icy, whatever it was called." And I'm like, "But it's brown. It's the Coke one." But I wanted the red one, which is huge. Do you remember how big it was? And it was spinning.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know, 6 feet tall. Like it was
a person.
it was enormous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I wanted the red one.
And
Got me
they've
the brown one.
and they've never gotten your order right since.
Never. No, and you know what I think is like, again, I love that it's an origin story. So let me ask you something.
Okay.
Anybody that knows me, what is my favorite type of cheese?
Blue.
Of course. Right? Like, I think that is...
Notice how quickly I answered.
Right. That is like dairy and
It's-
blue cheese.
right, quintessential,
right?
yeah.
Right. Not too long ago, I was here making a salad. This was maybe, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. And I was putting blue cheese crumbles. And my dad's like, ay, como tú le pones blue cheese a eso. El queso es a... And I'm like, bueno, a mí me gusta. He's like, ¿y desde cuándo a ti te gusta blue cheese? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, do I even engage? It's like...
I can top that.
I'm like, do I even engage? Like, do I even say, I've always liked blue cheese. It's my favorite cheese since I could walk.
I can top that. Every single time that they make, you know, camarones or something at my parents' house, and you know, my mother will never, she will give me chicken or whatever, right? Because we're still not sure if I'm allergic to shellfish or not, but whatever. For the longest
You're
time,
not taking your chance.
right? To this day, every time my father is like, "You don't eat shrimp."
Maybe that's why I don't come for the paella.
Yeah, it's like, and I always tell him, I'm like, I'm in my 40s, and I keep telling you this, and like, how, like, I don't understand why you don't register.
Yeah.
And it's not even a matter of like, I don't like the taste. It's like, this could kill me.
Right.
Like, you should know this.
No, no,
No, no,
no, no.
you don't eat shrimp.
No, you don't eat shrimp. Ah, pero desde cuando te gusta blue cheese? I'm like, since I was born. Like,
It was milk and blue cheese. That's
I
it.
remember being like 7 years old, a little kid, and like eating blue cheese dressing by the spoonful because I loved it. You know, and now, you know, you go to my refrigerator and have 4 different wedges of different blue cheeses.
You do have a lot of blue cheese.
I love blue cheese.
Options.
I put blue cheese on everything. I love blue cheese. If you know me, what I always tell you, what am I? I'm the Yankees, Full
Cruises.
House,
Cruise liners.
Ocean liners,
Ocean liners.
Mariah Carey,
Stadiums.
stadiums, ballparks,
James Bond.
James Bond, architecture, and blue cheese.
Right.
I'm very easy.
And the Gap.
And the Gap.
Yeah.
You get me anything,
And you're fine.
that's why, like, I always tell people, like, when I hear people tell me, "Oh, you're so hard to shop for," I'm like, I'm actually very easy to shop for.
If you know me.
Right, but again, I feel that the things that I like,
Let me rephrase that. If you are paying attention.
right, but it's hard not to pay attention because the things that I like are very fundamental to who I am and my personality.
You're not secretive about your likes
I'm
and
not
dislikes.
secretive about
Right,
it. Hence,
right.
I have 4 wedges of blue cheese. That's why you walk in to my house and I have my library, and on the one side, I have like displayed 4 huge books on the Olympics,
Right.
and on the other side, I have displayed like 4 huge books on ballparks and the Yankees. Like, this is not hard. And in the middle, I have like 5 box sets of James Bond. Like, it's in plain sight, people.
It's true. You can't get more plain sight than that. Excuse me. Well, all this talk of blue cheese has made me thirsty.
Oh yeah, is it that time again?
It is that time. So, do you want to go first?
No,
or-
you go first.
All right. So, I was actually going back and forth. I was like, oh, I don't know who to give it to. Maybe, I'm going to give it to the state of Maryland.
Maryland,
Yes.
as in Baltimore,
Yes.
Maryland.
And not only because, you know, they are home of the most famous Wretched concert.
That never happened.
That never happened. Well, no, the concert happened. They just didn't get to go.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I'm giving it to Maryland because recently, I mean like last month actually, they announced that they will no longer require a 4-year degree for thousands of state jobs. They're officially dropping the 4-year college degree requirement. It's the first in the nation. They basically are rolling it back because they've got so many government positions that were left vacant that, I mean, there's more than 300 state jobs that just don't require 4-year degrees and are currently open and posted. So, you know, many times we may have mentioned this, you know, on the show where, you know, you talk about like, oh, you know, you got to go to college and this and that. And yeah, if you want to go. And I encourage it just because I'm a nerd and you're a nerd as well. But I'm so also aware of the fact that sometimes when you're looking at job postings, you'll see that it's like, you know, oh, entry-level position requires, you know, a master's degree, 17 years of experience.
Right.
And all these other, and it's like, coño, really? So I like the fact that Maryland has basically said, look, these are jobs that...
Competitive salary starting at $35,000.
Right. You know, and you have to have like 75 years of experience. But I applaud Maryland for saying, you know what, we need to fill these positions, and there are people out there who are probably qualified, who are probably have some type of experience that makes sense. Why are we just going to hang on to this 4-year requirement that has been demonstrated you don't need it to do most jobs? Look, quite frankly, I'll be quite honest with y'all. I have my 4-year degree. I don't necessarily think that I need it to do my job. Because a lot of it comes from experience. A lot of it is on-the-job training. So, you know what? Kudos, Maryland. And maybe one day we'll go see The Wretched.
Out of Maryland.
In Baltimore. Maryland. Wait, where are we going to go have donuts?
And Wilmington, Delaware.
Delaware.
And if you get that reference, listeners, that's why you listen to us.
That is why you listen to us.
I'll keep it short and simple. We were talking about it before we started recording. I will give my last soda to James Corden, who announced this week that next year he will be leaving the Late Late Show. I love James Corden. It's like, who's going to do carpool karaoke now?
Oh, yeah. They'll do some new shtick.
I know, but it's carpool. It's cute. No, because, like, look, one of the funniest things I think that, like, of late night television was Jay Leno's headlines. That's gone.
Yeah, I mean, once the host leaves, yeah.
Right, and jaywalking.
True.
That's gone. So, I mean, these are things that die off when the host moves
and I think with James Corden, he's so inherently from a musical place.
And that is, the carpool karaoke is so much his shtick
Yeah.
that I can't imagine somebody else doing it.
No, whoever comes in to host, it'll be a completely new setup.
Yeah, so, you know, he... it's his 7th season, so it was like it went by so fast.
Yeah, it's not a lot in the grand scheme of late night.
So he will be missed. I really like James Corden. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's a different type of humor than like the Jimmys and all that. Though I like the Jimmys,
but that's what he brings to the table.
Right. So, you know, a soda for him for the laughs. So
all right.
So well, that was a fun 201.
That was a fun 201.
We hope everybody listened, laughed, and learned. And as always, remember to grab your croqueta, your pastelito, and your cafecito. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Cuídense, mi gente.
Bye.
Bye. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.